Well, we're getting the hot late September here in the UK. So yeah, so this is how the sheep shack's been getting on. I've not been getting it done as fast as I really should have been. I filled that gap up here with paving blocks, which I managed to slide in. That sort of tidied that up reasonably. You know, there was a gap there where birds could have got in. I'm going to probably put wood along on the top edge, some more of the T&G I've got down here. Yeah, so I've used conservatory glazing for windows and fitted it in F-section aluminium. It looks fairly neat, and that's going to be the sheep door down here, sheep access door, which is going to be into a locked off pen inside there, so they can't get in and run around the rest of the sheep shack. Yeah, so they're gonna have about a 2 meter square area in there, which should probably be reasonable enough. Yeah, yeah, so the thing which has been delaying me lately has been doing the front, and like that, I've got ideas. I'm probably going to weld some little flanges on this ironwork, little angle plates on, and then bolt some plywood onto it, and then screw more of the T&G onto the plywood, and I think that'll basically do it easily without having to have tons of screws mounted onto the ironwork. Right, so the hinges, obviously big doors. I've got a large space. I've got a space nearly 4 meters across here to fill up with doors. I did plan possibly on putting some glazing in the doors. That might come later on if I decide to mod them, but for the time being I've just basically made some 1 meter wide T&G doors with extra timber around the edges and a single diagonal on it, and that's basically the outside of it. Now the issue has been the hinges, because I want these doors to, well, first of all, what I'm thinking I'm going to be doing now is I'm doing like a bifold door, if that's the right description. Basically swing this closed like so, and I'm going to have another door hinged onto here, probably the hinges on this face here, so that that panel, which will be the next one, will swing back onto the back of this panel, if you follow, and then that will swing back against the side of the garage inside. Now I also want the doors to be able to swing outwards in case I clutter this garage up with large things like vehicles, you know. So I want to be able to potentially swing the doors outwards. Now at the moment I can't, because the ground outside of in front of the concrete is actually higher than the concrete, and I want to at some point remedy that by dropping the height of the ground. Obviously I will dig it back, but I'm probably not going to do it until next year now. I'm probably going to leave the grass undisturbed for the sheep and so on, and the door swinging inwards is probably more desirable at the moment anyway. Now the problem with these hinges and the door swinging inwards is and outwards is it's not easy to do that with the hinges which are available on the market. I was toying around with making something myself, and I probably could have done, but in the end I went on eBay and I found these large galvanized gate or barn door hinges. I was a little bit questioning whether this part was actually strong enough, but it's looking like it's going to hold up to the test. I was going to bolt these on, but I thought no, I want them to be pretty solid, so I'm going to weld them onto this galvanized 2-inch box section. I think this is about 3mm wall box section. It's the same box section steel as I used on the trails on my M3 anti-tank gun, so it's fairly good. Now it did have bends in it, and I did have it under the Land Rover, and I was driving the Land Rover front wheels with the engine on up and down over it with 2 blocks of wood at each end of the steel to try and put a counter bend, you know, to try and bend it past center point to bend it the other way, but it just wouldn't do it. The Land Rover wasn't heavy enough to straighten this steel. So in the end I've had to put some cuts in the steel through 3 faces, kink it in and then weld it back up again, as you can see there. I've also done it on the other side, just around there, to try and straighten the steel out. I did buy some more steel, but it wasn't galvanized, it was just plain mild steel, and in the end I thought for the amount of accuracy needed in essentially a barn door frame, I'll just kink it in and re-weld it. So that's what I've done. Welded some plates, uni-strut plates down on the bottom, stuck 2 bolts into the ground, and it all seems to be pretty solid. It's doing its job. So I'm going to be welding another 2 hinges on here probably today. So this comes back to the hinges. You see, when I close it like so into that position approximately there, and I've got a big gaping hole all the way down here which is 2 inches in diameter, and so there's things I can do. Of course, I can weld another piece of, say, uni-strut, 40mm uni-strut here in this gap, or just screw some wood to it. There's all various things. I could put some of this damp coarse plastic membrane, damp coarse membrane. I could screw that onto the back edge of this steel here and onto the back of the wood. I could put some timber, some laths down the back to hold it all on, and that would keep the wind out of it. So that's one way to go on it. But the hinges do seem to be doing the job. They seem to be holding up, so you know, because they're fairly heavy doors, 1 meter wide doors. Yeah, so then I've got another door to screw to it, which I haven't made or purchased yet. Now, I say purchased because there are some out there which, with a little bit of playing around with, would probably do between £40 and £60 they cost, depending on the quality you want. So I'd need 2, so it's 80 to 120 quid. These have cost me, let's see, about £140 up to now, just making these two, with timber from B&Q, or as is known in America, Home Depot. So yeah, that's not counting the hinges. The hinges were probably an extra £30 for, maybe £40 for a set of 4 hinges. So we're approaching nearly £200 by now with the bolts and stuff. Yeah, so basically that's the problem. As you can see, if I put the hinges on as they would normally go on either the front face or the back face, then when you close the door it would have been sealed. But I want the door to work both directions, inwards and outwards, so that is where the problem comes. So if I don't chop my fingers off in the top of the door frame, right, so you can see if I swing this right out, there is a constant gap here which needs to be filled. You can see the ground level down here as well. See, if I go, I haven't put all the bolts in yet, I need another coach bolt going through the square hole there, so that'll be going in next. But I've just put it with these M8 bolts for the time being until I was 100% sure that I like it like this, and I think this is the way I'm going to have to go with it. Yeah, so there you go. The garage is a good size. It's 7.2 metres by a touch under 4 metres internal. So